Hello, welcome to the Athena SWAN Forum. So nice to see so many people here, it's really great. My name's Paul Walton, I'm from the Chemistry Department. I chair the forum. Just to let you into our thinking when it comes to the forum is that this is for people interested, yes, principally in Athena SWAN, and of course the Athena SWAN Charter now is extended away from science into social science, arts and humanities and support staff. But also about equality, and we very much hope, and you'll notice the setting that we're in, this kind of what you might call workshop setting, that there'll be plenty of discussion during the forum. The idea of the forum is that it is a forum to talk about equality in Athena SWAN, and today we've got Sarah Dickinson Hyams from the Equality Challenge Unit that runs Athena SWAN from London. A little bit more about Sarah in a second. But we have a series of speakers, some of them are lined up already, to speak to the forum, all of whom will be equality or Athena SWAN or gender equality experts or enthusiasts. And the idea is that these people will give you ideas and perhaps inspiration when it comes to many of you who I guess are here because you're interested in either preparing an Athena SWAN charter for your own departments or being part of the thinking that's there. That's the idea of the forum. It's augmented by the committee that Debbie Smith chairs, which is the Athena SWAN Steering Group, which carries responsibility for the whole university's Athena SWAN charter, and various people sit on that group. And so that group, I guess, manages the Athena SWAN process. This is more meant to be the forum where we all get kind of inspired by good ideas. So please, when we have the discussion session after Sarah's spoken, please feel free to speak up if you have any thoughts, ideas, or worries, anything like that. This will be a forum to talk about that. Okay, so our first speaker of the whole kind of Athena SWAN forum is Sarah Dickinson Hyams from the Equality Challenge Unit. For those of you who don't know, the Equality Challenge Unit is now get me straight, it's government funded. I subscribe. Oh, you better tell people about that in your talk. It's university funded unit in London, which oversees equality in many dimensions, but its principal role is to take care of Athena SWAN, and has been running Athena SWAN now for almost 10 years, I think it's 11 years, yeah. 11 years, so a long time. And these are the folks who hand out the awards, these are the folks who arrange all the judging panels and do the assessments. And Sarah is, I think it's fair to say, is now globally famous for Athena SWAN and gets invited, you should charge more, gets invited all over the place to talk about Athena SWAN and really the effects, the positive effects it can have on gender equality within higher education institutions. And just to give you a flavour of the success of Athena SWAN, not only is it very significant here in the UK, but now has been formally adopted by Ireland. So Ireland as a country has adopted it. And much to Sarah's pleasure, because it involves several trips, I believe, Australia now have, is that right?
It's Canberra though, so.
Oh, I bleed for you, I'm sorry. And there are other countries as well that are showing interest. And it is a remarkable, I guess, social phenomenon that Athena SWAN has taken on so powerfully. And so we're very lucky to have Sarah. I should tell you that Sarah and I, we first met, you work for the Royal Society of Chemistry. I'm a chemist, Royal Society of Chemistry, many years ago. And just to spare your blushes ever so slightly, worked with a very good friend of mine called Sean McWhinney in the late 90s, very early on, trying to prepare gender equality thinking within chemistry departments in the UK. And you may wonder why chemistry departments in the UK seem to be on gender equality much earlier than most other departments. And a lot of it was down to Sarah's work in the Royal Society of Chemistry and Sean's work in the Royal Society of Chemistry many years ago. And we're very grateful for that, I have to say, Sarah. But she's going to speak to us today on Athena SWAN, and I've asked her to be quite practical. I'm aware, I'm just going to ask people to put their hands up. People from arts and humanities and social science departments here. Yes, thank you. It's great to see you. I've asked her to be quite practical for those of you who perhaps are new to Athena SWAN, to talk about a bit about the process, the application forms, maybe some tips and some hints about what the panels are really looking for. We can exchange those ideas ourselves anyway. But really to equip you, and all of us actually, with a good set of, I guess you would call it bullet points or notes, to help you practically put together an Athena SWAN application. And it's worth me saying, having done several of these now, that these are significant efforts. They require a lot of work, and it's always worth preparing yourself as best you can for the applications. Okay, so I'm not going to speak anymore. Sarah, it's over to you.
Okay. Well, thanks for that introduction, Paul, and thank you everyone for coming today. I'd like to say it's great to see that there are some men in the audience, so thanks for turning up. It is about gender equality, and good practice does benefit both men and women. I was just telling Paul just prior to this that you do normally have a higher proportion of women in the audience until it comes to the awards ceremony, when it comes to picking up the medals, and then suddenly a lot of men come out to collect the awards and the certificates. So, on to Athena SWAN, which is why you're all here. So, Athena SWAN was founded in 2005. So we had our 10th birthday last year, and we actually had a cake as well. Alas, not in the shape of a swan. But in 2005, it was formed as a recognition scheme of excellence in women's employment in science, technology, engineering, maths, and medicine. It came from something called the Athena Project, and that was based at the Royal Society and was funded partly from HEFCE as well. And that gave out pots of money to projects that look to improve the recruitment and retention of women in science. One of these projects was called the Scientific Women's Academic Network. And SWAN decided to come up, they had a conference, and during the preliminary session of the conference, the idea to have a charter and award scheme was discussed. And by the end of this conference, the Athena SWAN Awards had been created. So we started with 10 founder members, and we now have 138. That includes higher education institutes and research institutes, because we expanded in 2012 to include research institutes that aren't affiliated with higher education institutes as well. And so it's managed and owned by ECU. ECU until this year was funded from HEFCE. ECU is now funded from the subscriptions from universities. In addition to that, Athena SWAN gets other money from elsewhere, including the Royal Society, also the Australian Academy of Sciences to run the charter out there, as well as the Higher Education Authority in Ireland. In May 2015, the focus of Athena SWAN changed, and it became a recognition scheme of commitment to gender equality across institutions. So it's now very much the gender equality, not just women. And it came out of something called the Gender Equality Charter Mark, or GEM. And this was something that ECU did in 2013. So Arts, Humanities, Social Science, Business and Law departments had said that they wanted to do something like Athena SWAN. So ECU said, okay, we'll set a charter mark up for you. There are some principles. It was based on the methodology and process of Athena SWAN, but it was slightly different in the fact that you had to have a data template that you filled in, and also that the questions were based around the principles of the charter rather than functions, which Athena SWAN is. The trial ran, the applications were assessed, and then we asked for feedback. And basically the sector said, whilst they appreciated our efforts, they wanted to do Athena SWAN. They understood Athena SWAN, other departments in the university were doing Athena SWAN, and that's basically what they wanted to do. So in May 2015, we expanded the charter to include the Arts, Humanities, Social Science, Business and Law departments, or ASPL, as it's become known. When we launched it, I asked in the audience if anyone had any snazzier acronyms for the Arts, Humanities, Social Sciences, Business and Law, and the only suggestion I got was balls. So unfortunately, balls. So unfortunately, I'm not allowed to use that. So ASPL is stuck. We did take some of the lessons from GEM with the expansion and changed Athena SWAN slightly. In a nutshell, it's basically no longer just about women, academics or science. So it's about gender equality generally. So we want to hear about the underrepresentation of men in subjects like nursing or psychology. We now include the professional and support staff, and this was an important bit that came out of GEM. Professional and support staff are such a massive part of the culture of a university, of a department. They have a lot to do with the students and the staff, and it was felt that in order to be an inclusive charter, we needed to include professional and support staff. At institutional level, we now ask about policies around trans staff and students. We don't ask about data, we're not asking for anyone to identify themselves. It's just about what policies does the university have in place to support trans staff and students. For anyone that had done has done a post-May 2015 Athena SWAN Award, some of the questions were a little bit repetitive, some of them weren't quite in a logical order, so we took the opportunity to rationalise them. We also took the opportunity to add some questions because, for example, one asked about the RAE, well, we now ask about comparing that to the REF. We extended the award to be a 4-year award. It was quite complicated. It was 3 years from the result to the nearest deadline or something like that. So now it's a 4-year award from the day that you apply. We aggregated and extended the word count. So now you don't have to try and sort of squeeze 500 words in here, 4,500 words here. It's a word count for the entire application. And the reason for this as well is that it will help the ASPL departments if some of them are quite small. And so if you have smaller numbers of staff, you can then use the word count instead of having to use a certain number to discuss statistics, which are unlikely to be that relevant. You can use it to discuss your survey data or your interview data instead. And at institutional level, we also ask about considerations of intersectionality. So by that we mean not just thinking of women as one group. You have to think about the fact that the experiences of a black woman are going to be very different to, say, the experiences of a black man or a white woman. But this is only thinking about it, and it's only at the institutional level for now. So when Tom Welton, he's now the Dean of Faculty of Natural Sciences at Imperial, but he was the head of chemistry at Imperial then, when they got their Gold Award, he stood up before we included professional support staff, and he actually stood up and talked about how important it was that we look to expand the charter. And so I think this is quite a nice quote from the talk that he did when he collected his award. So on to the new questions that are in the form. So as I said previously, we have a question now about a question around REF versus RAE. So what are the proportion of people that were eligible and were included in the REF versus the RAE? We now also ask about support for grant applications. So what support is available and whether or not there's any gender differences within that support. Previously, we just asked about part-time staff and full-time staff. We're now looking at whether staff are on research or teaching contracts or research and teaching, and also 0 hours and casual contracts because they weren't previously included. We asked about HR policies. This is around how they're monitored for how effective they are, so for things around bullying and harassment or dignity at work. And we also ask much more about what flexibility is available for staff when they return from a career break. So whether or not staff have the opportunity to come back part-time and then go back up to full-time. So the awards themselves, at institutional and departmental level, we've got bronze, silver and gold. Basically, at bronze level, we are looking for a thorough self-assessment. We're looking for you to get your data and carry out staff consultation to identify the good, the bad, and maybe in some cases the ugly, and put an action plan in place to continue the good and address the bad and the ugly. At silver, we want that too, but we also want to see evidence of progress and achievement and also impact. And impact doesn't have to be in terms of staff numbers. Impact can be measured in terms of an extension in knowledge. So, for example, if you carry out a survey within your department and the survey comes back and says that 80% of the men in the department understand the promotion process, but only 20% of the women do. So you run promotion workshops, you ensure it's mentioned in appraisals, one-to-ones, and then you run a survey again, and now 100% of the staff, men and women, understand the promotion process. That would be evidence of the impact of what you've done. And gold. At gold level, we are looking for significant record of activity and impact. Gold departments and institutions should be beacons for gender equality and out championing good practice. As Paul knows, there's quite a lot of championing of good practice that needs to go into it. So we released the results of the April 2016 round in September. So we now have 618 award-holding institutions and departments. And you can see the breakdown there. For the April round, we had 158 submissions and we awarded 101 awards. This does represent a 65% success rate, which is less than we have had in previous years. It's normally at around 70%. However, when we broke this down, you can see that actually the pre-May forms was 68%, so around what we would expect, whereas the post-May forms were 60%. We think that the reason why the success rate for the post-May forms was lower is because the departments doing them are newer to this process, but also we only released the forms last May, which means you've had less than a year to put them together. And anyone who's looking at them now will realise there's a lot of data and evidence that needs to be collected, a lot of analysis that needs to be done, and it's possible that trying to do it in under a year isn't possible for some people. So how does it work? As I said previously, it's about a thorough self-assessment. It's not a box-ticking exercise. It's not, yes, we've got promotion sorted, we've got this number of women on our promotion committees, we've got this number of women being promoted, we've got an appraisal scheme. It's about assessing those processes and policies and seeing what's good, what's bad, what's working, and how staff are feeling about them. So you need to look at not only your staff and student data, but also you need to carry out some kind of surveys, staff consultation, interviews. Again, we don't say what that has to be. It's up to you to decide what's most appropriate for your department, for your subject area, for your size. Same with what questions to ask. You need to critically analyse the data. We want to find out why there are issues, how you're going to address them, not just describe what the data are telling you. We want you to identify the reasons for exclusion and underrepresentation and then put all of this together into a 4-year action plan to address the issues. And also, in order to apply again, either for an upgrade or to renew, you need to show progress over time. So why does it work? Well, I think it works because it was set up by the academic community for the academic community. ECU didn't set this up. Women who wanted to see change set this up. And so there is buy-in from the academic community. We say that in order for it to be successful, it has to be led and championed by senior academics. So we have to have a letter of endorsement from the Vice-Chancellor or the head of department. And now we insist that they say that it's an honest representation of what's going on in the department as well, because you need that buy-in from the top. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much goodwill there is in a department. You have to have the people who can enact the change, who can make the change stick, bought in and involved. It does require a thorough self-assessment and reflection so that you can understand individual data and challenges, whether that's specific to the subject area, to the department, to the location, to the university. You have to involve staff consultation and engagement, and the awards are only valid for 4 years. So you can't just get the award and then that's it. You have your silver badge that you can put up. You have to keep continually progressing. You have to keep working on the action plan if you're going to be able to renew or upgrade. So what we're looking for is actions that look to change and challenge. So thinking about processes. So do you have to have an annual consideration for promotion? Could it be throughout the year? Could it be twice a year? Would that be appropriate? Looking at criteria and what is essential. Is it essential that someone has to have some kind of published international paper in order to get promoted? And looking at practices. So do all jobs need to be advertised as full-time, or can people work flexibly? Could it be a job share? And when we send out the results from the awards, we always include a bit of good practice about what people are doing. And at the awards ceremony, we hand these out, and there's a booklet which details good practice of what other departments are doing, other universities are doing. So if you want to look to see what another department of chemistry is doing, for example, you can have a flick through and see what good practice they're doing, or another similar type of university. I don't know, compare other Russell Group universities or other universities in your local area. So why should people do it? One of the really good reasons is that it's a great way of showcasing what you're already doing. A lot of the time people sit down and they get their data and they look at their processes, and there's some really good stuff going on in the individual departments or institutions, and actually it's not being advertised properly. So it's a really good chance to sit down and go, actually we've got these really good informal good practice things going on. Let's formalise them and let people in the department and the institution know about them. It does highlight areas where you can make positive changes as well, so it does identify where there are challenges. It helps increase the awareness of career progression issues. By bringing everything together, by putting it out on the web, by sending it around the department, it encourages increased transparency. And if you're going through this process, and if you do manage to get an award, or even just to say that you're going through this process, can help demonstrate a good working environment for job applicants. But work on equality also delivers benefits for research as well. Again, I pulled this out of Imperial College's Department of Chemistry Gold submission, where they actually say that working on equality and diversity helped increase their research volume from 8 million to 13 million. So in 2014, we carried out an independent evaluation report. We did actually carry out one in 2011, but that was carried out by ECU, and we basically went to friends of Athena SWAN and asked them what they thought. So we've got this nice report from 2011 that shows a lot of impact, but actually it was carried out by us and we didn't interview anyone that didn't have an Athena SWAN award. So in 2014, we got independent evaluators to carry out a proper evaluation, and they interviewed institutions with awards versus those without, and departments with awards versus those without. And what they found was that there was evidence of sustainable change in the institutions and departments that held Athena SWAN awards. That women in particular were reporting improved visibility, increased self-confidence and enhanced leadership skills. In silver departments, all staff, men and women, and professional and support staff reported positive differences in their career satisfaction and development opportunities. And also in silver departments, administrative and technical staff reported a greater sense of belonging. So for those of you in the arts, humanities and social science departments, this doesn't actually apply because you can only go on one form. But for those who are in the STEM departments, until next year, you have the opportunity to apply on either form. So this is the old form, or the post-May 2015 form. So some of the pros to using the old form, you'll know it. You'll have the data and the data sets ready to go. You'll be able to look at other applications online, find them easily, compare them and see what others are doing. And your action plan will still fit in very nicely with the old form. You'll probably have actions to deal with all the different questions. Having said that, it doesn't include the professional and support staff, and as we're finding, they're getting more and more involved in this process. Some of the questions are repetitive and not always rationalised. And to be honest, you're just delaying the inevitable because you're going to have to do it from next year anyway. The new form looks much snazzier as well. It includes everyone. So it's your professional, your support staff, as well as your academic staff. It is much clearer and easier to follow, and the questions make much more sense than the previous form. And it means that you can start to think about it and put everything in place now. It is more data. It does ask for a lot more data. So if you've already got your data sets from your previous application forms, you're going to have to add to them or change them. There are a lot more questions, and it's new, so you can't find, I'm not sure there are any examples out there at the moment. We do keep chasing people to ask them to put them up online, but because we don't put the applications up ourselves, due to confidential data within applications, we're still chasing the few people that do have awards on the new forms to put them up. The application form themselves still ask for data and evidence, though, around the 4 key areas that are proven to be barriers to everyone's career progression. So around the key career transition points, so your promotion processes, your application processes, the career development opportunities that are in place, what flexibility is there for people before, during and after they go on some kind of a career break, and what the organisation and culture is like, whether or not you celebrate success, what the committee structures are like. So I'm not going to go through the whole form, but the one big thing that people fail on that make an application unsuccessful is action planning. And I have to say this round particularly, maybe I was just unlucky in the panels that I was looking at, but the action plans are really where the applications fall down. This is probably more important than the application form itself. This is saying that you've understood what your data are telling you. This is saying that you know or think you know how you can fix it. This is saying who's going to fix it, when. It's a really important part of the application. And I think because it slots in at the back, people leave it to the very end and rush it. And you really shouldn't. You should be looking to do your actions all the way through. From the first moment you get your first bit of data, you should be thinking about what actions you're going to put in place. So action plans need to be smart and linked directly to the body of an application. So what you want to see as a panellist or as a moderator when you're going through the application is the data, the analysis of the data, and then the action to address any issues that have come out of that, or what you're going to do to continue the good things that have happened as a result of that data. It makes it so much easier if you cross-reference the action plan from the issues all the way through the application. And action points don't count towards the word count. So if you can spell it out as well, it makes it even clearer than just putting action 1.246. Sort of say what the action is and it doesn't count towards the word count. We're looking for clearly defined responsibilities, so giving all the responsibilities to the self-assessment team. It doesn't show who's actually accountable and responsible for those actions, and a whole team isn't going to carry something out. You're not going to be able to do everything at once, so we don't want to see front-loaded action plans. We want to see milestones, we want to see the actions spread out across the 4-year validity of the award. We're looking for actions that are specific to the issues faced by the institution or department. You can look through other applications online and see some really great actions and you think that's a great action. But if you don't have the same issues, it's going to look really out of place in your action plan, and the panel are going to go, well, okay, that's a nice action, but why is it in your application? Because that doesn't match the issues you've got. Monitoring is important, but it's not the answer to everything, and it's not going to enact any change. So having an action plan that is just going to monitor this data further isn't going to get you anywhere. We're looking for measurable outcomes and success measures. So targets, anything, if it can be quantifiable or numerical, is really helpful for the panel to show that you have an understanding of what's going on. It will also help you say whether or not you've met your action the next time you come to upgrade or renew. So the process itself, there are 2 submission rounds a year. It's the last working day of April and the last working day of November. We tend to group the subjects, the applications by subject area. So we'll have a chemistry panel or a physics panel or an English panel. In terms of the panellists themselves, we have 5, and they will consist of academics, E&D HR people from the higher education arena, subject specialists, so these may either be the academics or someone drawn from a learned society or professional body. The most experienced panellist will be the chair, and prior to the panel we ask for a declaration of interest so that we can make sure that there's no conflicts of interest on the panel. So we have the most experienced panellist as the chair, and then we also have 1 moderator and 1 note taker, and the moderator and note taker are ECU members of staff. Since May 2015, we have a new process that includes a appeals process. So applicants now do have the right to appeal a decision if they don't like it. There are only 2 grounds for appeal. It is whether you think the decision is manifestly unreasonable or procedural error. In addition, ECU, we can now put applications to a new panel if we feel the decision is inconsistent. So previously we didn't have that right either, but now as the people who see the most applications, read the most applications, if we feel the decision or the recommendation is inconsistent, then we will put it to a new panel. So tips for the panel. With the new application forms, it takes about 3 to 4 hours to read a submission thoroughly. We send these submissions out about 5 weeks before the panel, and we ask the panellists to read the application forms. We send them a notes page as well, and we ask them to jot down things that they want to commend and things that they think could be improved about the application. Then we sit there for a day, we see 4 or 5 submissions, and each submission is discussed for around 45 to 60 minutes. So this is why it's really important to make things easy for the panel to find and assimilate any information that they want. After the 45 minutes or 60 minutes, however long it's taken to discuss that particular application, there are 4 possible outcomes for the award. So you can either give the application the award or renew the award. You can confer it or renew it, but at a lower or higher level now. You can request additional information. I say this is exceptional. I think it happened most in the last round. Request for additional information is where the panel feel that they can't quite make a decision based on what's in front of them. Now that could be because something's happened in one of the specific sections where the data aren't clear, and so the panel are disagreeing over what the data are saying. More often than not, it's because the action plan doesn't seem to match the application. So the application will be really good, but the action plan is incredibly weak and there are mistakes in it. It has to be something that can be done within 2 weeks reasonably, because that's the amount of time you've got, and that it's just a specific part that they're not sure about. So we won't send an entire application back to you to redo in 2 weeks, because that's just not possible. So it will be something specific, like an action plan. If we do that, like I say, you get 2 weeks to do it, then it comes back to us and we have a teleconference with the panel and we discuss the additional information over the phone and then make a decision on that. Or we can not give an award at all. That's the other outcome. Regardless of what the outcome is, every applicant gets comprehensive written feedback. And the feedback outlines why the application didn't meet the criteria. It always highlights good practice, and it suggests the areas in which and where you need to improve in order to put in another application. So good applications are honest. We are looking for an honest application, an honest self-assessment. You're not going to be penalised for there being challenges in your department or institution. You will be penalised for not being honest about them. You need data. It depends on the data reporting and the data analysis. You need to include your staff consultation data. There's nothing more frustrating than getting an application. It says that you've carried out these amazing focus groups, surveys, you had an amazing response rate, and then not including any of the data within the application. I said around the action planning to make sure that you link the data analysis and action together so that it all makes sense. That you're not making it a women's problem, you're not trying to sort of fix the women. So if there's an issue with promotion and that the women don't seem to understand it, don't necessarily say, right, that's the women's issue. Think, well, what have we done? Why do the men understand it more? Is it because they're getting more information at some kind of level? Think about it in a different way. And include a smart action plan. I can't say that enough. Please make the action plan smart. So why are applications unsuccessful? Poor action plans. Lack of senior management buy-in. So I've said before, if you don't have the people at the top involved, then the changes aren't going to be able to happen. And you can really see with an application, if just one person in the department has taken the time to write it, you can really see if it doesn't have that high-level buy-in. If the narrative within the application is descriptive rather than analytical, then the application is likely to be unsuccessful. You're going to be unsuccessful if you don't manage to identify the issues that the data are showing. If the action plan is not targeted to the issues that are raised, and an inappropriate balance between process and proactive action. So again, looking to monitor or continue things rather than having some kind of proactive action in place. So to get support and advice, I would always recommend getting someone external, at least to the department, if not the institution, to read the application, because things that you'll understand in your department that are specific to York, say, people external may not understand. So if you've got a friend in another department, in another university, ask them if they'll read your application, and in return you could offer to read their application. Talk to other departments, so share good practice. I don't know if there's a forum at a professional body or learners society that you have, or attend your regional networks, anything to sort of help share the load. We're always looking for panellists, so you can join a panel. That's a really good way of understanding the process, finding out how you sort of think like a panellist, how the other panellists think, attending regional networks, using a professional body and learners society. And I guess finally, it's really good to look at applications that are online. It's good to see what other people are doing, but be aware that you don't know what parts of an application the panel thought were good and which weren't. And also the applicants are allowed to remove data, they're allowed to remove anything that they think is confidential. So there may be bits of the application that are missing that were actually assessed. And if you want any further information, there's our website up there, but also you can email the Athena SWAN team as well.